Well, hi there. Welcome back to the Prolific Author Podcast. So today, the episode that I have for you is actually a live coaching, and it is a book metadata audit. I know that's kind of a mouthful to say, but let me tell you how all this came about. I started doing these for the clients I have whose Amazon ads I am running. If you didn't know that I do that, I actually do now. And if that's something you're interested in, there will be a link in the show notes. If you can just book a call with me and we can talk about whether or not it's right for you. It may not be. But anyway, I would do these metadata audits because in order to get my clients' results so that their Amazon ads are converting and making sales, everything about their book has to be optimized. So I would start by doing an audit and going through the categories they're in, their covers, their blurbs, sometimes their titles, that sort of thing. And what I started to hear from my clients is that this was really, really valuable, and I ought to offer this as a service, kind of an a la carte service to other authors. So I decided that I would try that out and see how much interest there was, and I did get a little bit of interest. So some of my clients who do the audits are willing to let me use them on the podcast. Some are not, and that's completely up to them, what they're comfortable with. But today, we're talking about Jack Ory's book, and he's actually been on the podcast before as a coaching client, so he's always a good sport about letting me use our interviews on the podcast, so thank you to him for that. Yeah, so you are going to hear me go over all of his metadata for his book and make some suggestions for why it might not be converting as well as he would like. This is one episode that you actually may get some benefit from watching, so I will make sure that I put the YouTube link in the show notes. And the only reason for that is because I actually share my screen with him and kind of show him different covers, and it just might be beneficial for you to see what I'm seeing and what we're actually talking about. So you just have that option if you want. It will be on YouTube so that you can see my screen. So without further ado, let's jump in to the call, and I will be back at the end with a few follow-up thoughts. Welcome to the Prolific Author Podcast. Let's face it, readers read fiction to feel emotion and be transported and transformed. In this ongoing digital revolution, where online marketing is always in flux, the only way to create a sustainable author business and live off your royalties is to write transformational stories, market at every stage of the author journey, and cultivate a loyal audience of readers. Fortunately, there's never been more opportunity to make a living as a fiction author. Hi, I'm Liesl Hill, USA Today bestselling author and story clarity coach. When I'm not dictating my own stories about dragons, serial killers, and dystopian worlds, I help other authors write their own transformational fiction, position them as bestsellers, and market them like pros. Join me on the podcast where I give writing tips, marketing how-tos, story advice, and interviews with other authors who are in the trenches just like you and making it work. We are prolific authors. Okay, so I did an audit on your book's metadata. So basically what I go over is I look at the cover, the categories, and then also the blurb.
Okay.
So in terms of categories, I actually think you're good. I like all the categories you're in. I didn't see any that I was like, whoa, it shouldn't be in there. So I think you're really good on the categories section.
Okay.
Now I'm going to, you said that you're getting, or at least when you did, ads, you're getting clicks, but not conversions, right? You're not actually making sales.
Yeah.
Okay. So I am going to actually share my screen with you so I can show you some things.
Okay.
Okay. So I pulled up 3 of the categories that you are ranking in, which are the young adult about depression and mental illness. And I guess we should preface this by talking just a line or two about what your book is about. Your book is a young adult book that deals with sexual assault and kind of those kinds of issues. So you are ranking in depression and mental illness. You are ranking in, what is this one? Young adult fiction about self-esteem, and then about sexual abuse. Now, I can tell you that one of the problems is probably your cover.
Okay.
And let me show you why. If it will, there it goes. Gotta get through my, there we go. Okay. So this is your cover here, and it's very light colored, pastel colored. Now, I like I said, I pulled up these 3 categories so that we can kind of compare. So in the depression and mental illness one, and you'll have to disregard, some of them are obviously fantasy or obviously romance.
Yeah.
You'll have to disregard those.
Yeah, that's an issue I always find when I look at any YA category. There's always fantasy that I'm like, that.
Yeah.
Goofy.
Right. So for one thing, you do have an illustrated cover instead of like pictures, and that doesn't bother me too much. I will say that it's not super common in these categories. It's like maybe 10, 15%, but I mean, that's okay. Some of them that are on the top 100 are illustrated, so that doesn't bother me too much. But if you look at a lot of these, there's a lot of color contrast, and there's a lot of, especially black and white, or well, I guess I should say black and other colors. So we've got like black and red, black and green. See, this one's illustrated here, but we do have a lot of color contrast there. Those look like they're romance. But you can just see that there's a lot of black and white, and when they are lighter colors, we just have a lot of different colors going on so that there's a lot of contrast. Let's look at a different one here. This is the Self-Esteem. Kind of the same, like that actually looks like it could be in your wheelhouse, but we've got like pinks and oranges. And a lot of it too has to do with what the cover, I mean, part of it is the color contrast, but what the cover conveys. So like this is actually got a lot of light in it, it's life on hold, but it does convey that she's upset, that she's not very happy, you know, that you're dealing with some kind of dark issues here. Let's see, that's fantasy. There's another one that's illustrated, but again, with lots of color. And there we go. So we've got really popping reds there. That one's illustrated. And this doesn't really have a picture. Actually, that's traditionally published. So the one that I think that you really ought to focus on most is the young adult fiction about sexual abuse, because that is very specifically what your book is about. So once again, we have the colors here. We have the red and the orange and then the dark down here. Here we just have like the dark and the light. But this, you know, it sends a really clear message. This is another one. This actually may be romance, but you can see once again that she just doesn't look very happy, and you have the purple against the black and white. Kind of the same thing there. Through a few more of these. A lot of dark and light. Here's some more that are either illustrated or, you know, possibly that one. But again, we've got all the colors. So, okay. So you get the idea. This is the kind of thing, if you want to rank highly in these categories, then you need to make your cover look a lot more like these. Okay. And if we look at your cover, find the right one, to me, it just doesn't really convey the darker side of the issues that you're dealing with. This is actually very happy. It's very light, which isn't bad. I mean, it's a lovely cover, but it's just not really encapsulating the genre very well. And then she doesn't look terribly upset about anything. She looks kind of like ho-hum. So, you know, do whatever you want with your cover. I would also recommend, you can actually see this writing pretty well, but I would move it up because it feels like it's kind of in front of her face. So I don't know if you want to have your cover designer tweak some things. I mean, you could still use this cover, but maybe add in some darkness, you know, some more color contrast, that sort of thing. So the problem is if people are thinking, you know, I didn't find that other one. There was one that I wanted to, I just didn't go down far enough. So this is called The Raped Babysitter. So obviously that's dealing with sexual abuse too. And you see how dark that is. It just conveys that this is a dark issue, and your cover kind of just doesn't. And so if people are looking for that kind of thing and they see your cover, it's just not going to appeal to them that much. So that's part of the reason why you're probably not getting too many conversions off your ads. Okay. So that's one thing I would recommend. Now, the blurb, your blurb is, it's kind of interesting because when I first read it, I went, oh, that's a pretty good blurb. I think it portrays what's going on really well. But then when I really started picking it apart, I kind of found some things that were lacking. So it's just kind of funny how that happens. We can think that the blurb is awesome and maybe we're not seeing all of it. So my number one question about the blurb is, I think you do a really good job telling us what the book is about. And I'm assuming that the assault happens fairly early in the book.
Yeah, like, chapter 2.
Okay, great. So you do a really good job of conveying that, and that is pretty much our inciting incident, which is good. But I'm wondering, I also don't get a sense of the stakes of the story so much. So I want to know what she is doing to heal from it. You talk about as she struggles to put her identity back together, she must decide who she wants to be, the quiet girl who doesn't rock the boat, or the bold advocate for herself and other survivors. So what is she doing to reaffirm her identity, first of all?
Right. So it goes through like the first act, like the first third of it. At first, she tries to keep it to herself and tries to just go on. And then she realizes that she can't talk to her best friend. So she tells her friend what happened. And then her friend um accidentally tells other people without thinking, because her friend goes and confronts the girl that she went to the party with and basically yells at her in front of the whole school that it's her fault that this happened. And so now people know that she didn't want to know. And so then for the first part of that, she's trying to navigate that and trying to navigate like, who does she want to tell? What does she want to do? And then towards the middle of the book, after she starts talking with Brad, she starts going out with Brad and she starts being more assertive about who she really is. And at a certain point, when she gets bullied, she decides she goes to her meeting, and in front of the meeting, basically says, before I go off the meeting, I want to set the record straight about what happened. And she tells the people at the meeting, and then this girl comes up to her after it and says to her, something like this happened to me too, and talks to her about it. And what ends up happening is that she makes some new friends who are encouraging her to put together an assembly for the school about sexual assault awareness. And she ends up and at a certain point also, her parents push her to see counseling, and she does see a counselor for like part of the story as well. And then there's a whole issue of her old friends don't really understand what's going on and don't like the changes she's made and are trying to pull her back, and her new friends are pushing her in this direction, and she has to decide which way she wants to go. And she also is dealing with her friends call her Mouse, and so after the assault, she starts seeing herself as two separate people, as Hannah, who wants to do something about this, and Mouse, who is scared and just wants to stay quiet. So so there's a lot of internal stuff that goes on, like her friend will say something that she doesn't like, and she'll want to say it's okay, but then she'll be like, no, that's Mouse's idea, I don't want to.
Right.
And so she's like pushing herself to speak more. She's pushing herself to express who she really is more. She's pushing herself to do the things she wants to do and not just what her friends think she should be doing.
Okay, so what would you say then, if I were to say, let's see, she's struggling to put her identity back together, what would be the consequence if she's not able to do that?
If she's not able to do that, she's just going to stay Mouse. Then she's going to end up just spiraling down into depression and self-destruction, that kind of thing. Because yeah.
Okay, so when we talk about doing, I'm going to pull up this, I don't know if you can see this, but I will send it to you. When we talk about the blurb, we really need to keep it pretty concise, and these are the main questions that we want to answer. Sorry, okay. I've got jets flying over my head. Who is your main character? What does he or she want? Who or what stands in their way? What will they do in order to get what they want? And what is at stake? I've got this as he, but this will be she if she fails. Okay, so you do the first part pretty well. You've got 16-year-old Hannah, but I just kind of shortened it to a shorter sentence. She is determined to prove that she's not her mother. But I had a hard time with, what the stakes were and everything, because like I said, the assault is kind of what happens in the inciting incident. And so that becomes, I mean, don't get me wrong, that's a really good thing, but it's kind of just the jumping off point. So here, let's see if I can kind of give you some suggestions here. You've got her shy, sweet persona involves all these things that she does, and it does not involve dating Brad Ashton. And I even think you could maybe bring him in, but a little bit later, because one of my questions was whether he was the one that did the assault, but I'm assuming not. That's somebody she's actually going to have a romance with, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because there's a whole subplot about how hard it is for her to have this romance, not only because her friends disapprove of it, but like at certain points, like there's a scene where they're running the track together, and she trips over her shoelace, and he tries to catch her, and she has this automatic reaction of like, get off me. And so there's a lot of stuff like that that's going on as well.
Okay. So I'm going to kind of rewrite some of this, but of course you can tweak it however you want it. I'm just kind of giving you some suggestions. One thing with blurbs is most of the time we don't need to be as specific and detailed as we think we do. And believe me, I've been there. I've been the person with 1,000-word blurbs before. But so I just kind of brought this down. You can actually probably leave in a little bit more about her persona, but I just changed it to prove that, which is an off jump from this sentence. 16-year-old Hannah is determined not to turn into her mother. To prove that, she joins student groups and hangs out with friends who share her wholesome values. So again, you don't necessarily need to name the groups. It just becomes kind of fluff when it's in the blurb that way. And then let's see. I had already kind of rewritten this. Against her better judgment, she agrees to attend a college party. Her innocence is shattered when she wakes up the next morning to realize she's been drugged and assaulted. So that's kind of the inciting incident or the backstory. So now we have to get to what she wants and what stands in her way. So it would probably be something like, oh, you know, you had this line at the beginning. I forgot to go over this when you said everything exactly the same as it was before she'd gone to the party. It was only her that was different. Is that supposed to be coming from her after the assault? Like she's trying to convince herself of that?
That's actually a quote from chapter 3 or 4.
Okay, so that actually might be better, at least the idea of it down here. Like something like she wants nothing more than to go back to how things were before the assault. But, and what is standing in her way? Is things have changed, she's having nightmares, you know, what is it? She can't stop thinking about it.
Right, like, well, she realized she's withdrawing from people, she's depressed, she realizes that she can't maintain her relationship with her friends because they don't know what happened, so she can't talk to her best friend without talking about what happened to her. And then she's also once that happens, she's also getting bullied and people calling her a slut and calling her a hypocrite because she belongs to a group that encourages sobriety, and she went to this kind of party and people think that she got drunk and that kind of thing.
Okay. Okay, so I went with, and again, feel free to tweak this however you want to. She wants nothing more, or maybe something more like more than anything. She wants to go back to how things were before the assault, but something deep within her has changed. She can't talk to her best friends anymore, and the bullying at school grows worse every day. So what is she willing to do to, let's see, you talk about reclaiming, what did you say? I've totally lost it now. Okay, struggling to put back together her identity. So what is she willing to do in order to put back together her identity?
So she's pretty much willing to push herself totally out of her comfort zone and totally let go of her quiet persona.
Okay. So maybe you could say, she realizes she must choose between who she was and who she has become in the wake of the assault. And you can put in stuff about her persona there if you want. And then say, then we just kind of need to end on the stakes. So something like, if she, what did I write down? If she can't, rebuild maybe her identity, may be doomed to victimhood, depression, and that's not a good way to say it, and like not having a voice. How would you say that better? Let's see. She may be doomed to victimhood, depression, and maybe silence for the rest of her life. Something like that. Okay, so and I, you know, really you could hone this and make it a little bit tighter and do it better, but I just kind of try to follow this template to make sure that we're getting the basic what happened, which you know you can kind of tell us. I really think, well, I guess I kind of did. You could keep who she is and what happened. I mean, I think you do need to mention the sexual assault in the blurb because that can be triggering. People need to know that that's what this is about and be very, very obvious about that, which you've already done. But I think you can do that, who she is and kind of the inciting incident in just a sentence or two. And then we need to focus on her journey through the rest of the book, you know, what's going on, what's happening, how she's trying to fix it, and what the stakes are if she doesn't. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. So if you can, and I think that's, see if I can get this page gone. There we go. The blurb, like I said, it's certainly not bad, but I think if you can tweak it so that people kind of understand what the journey is and what the stakes are, that's going to make them want to pick up the book more. And so you should get better conversions if you can tweak both your cover and your blurb.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
So those were the main things I saw. Like I said, the categories were fine, and I will send you this file that I just kind of went through. Do you have any other questions or anything else I can help you with?
I was curious too, and I don't know if this is something that I can do anything about, but since I do have the reader's note at the beginning, and that's the first thing people see in the look inside, I was wondering if that might be something that's turning people off, or.
I didn't look at that. What does the reader's note say?
It basically, it says, I have a copy right here, so I basically say I wrote this book to help empower readers who are dealing with the aftermath of sexual assault or relationship violence. I mean, you can see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't imagine that's turning them off. I mean, it's pretty short. It's not like 17 pages of, you know what I mean? It's just a paragraph there. And if anything, I don't know, I would think that would help them understand the point of the book and, you know, get a little bit of inspiration about why you wrote it. I don't know. If you're worried about that, you could always test it. Maybe upload a file that has it at the end instead of the beginning and see if that changes any of your sales. Okay. But because it's not very long, I don't know. I can't imagine that it would necessarily turn people off. Right. I would recommend fixing your cover and your blurb first and see if your sales pick up at all. Okay. And if they still haven't, then you can do some experimenting with that, move it to the end and see if that changes anything. Okay.
And the other thing I wonder about the cover is I do wonder if it would be better with like a stock image than with an illustration. Because there are some stock images I've used on a lot of my like Instagram posts or whatever about it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you could try that. So a couple of, and actually I didn't really talk about the title. The other thing is that the title, it's not bad by any means, but it doesn't have any, I think I might've written some down. Yeah, I'll put these in your, I wrote these down by hand, but I'll put them in your file that I send you. Sometimes for the title, if you wanted to change the title, go through books, you know, go through those categories, like the one about teens dealing with sexual assault, and find books that match yours. Like I said, a lot of them, like we said, are fantasy or romance, you know, don't worry about those, but find a good couple of dozen that match yours and start writing down words that you see really often. So some of them that I wrote down are things like life, limited, touch, me, because sometimes the title is like me or I in first person, love, strangers, places, and girl, since your character is a girl. You might just want to try to put together some words that are more common in the genre or that kind of convey the subject matter that you're dealing with. I know that, I mean, a lot of them probably don't. I mean, there's the one that says the raped babysitter, obviously that's, you know, that's conveying it, but Reinventing Hannah, it could be a romance title. It could be a contemporary self-help title. You know what I mean? It just doesn't in and of itself really convey the genre. So again, just you don't have to change it, but just something else to think about. But yeah, you could play around with the cover. You could also have you looked into pre-mades at all?
No, I haven't.
So if you, let me see, I bet I could find some for you. They tend to be less expensive. So if you do pre-made book covers, obviously I've searched this before. So you've got 15,000 pre-made book covers here, pre-made book covers and ebook covers. And most of them are like $100, $150 because they're pre-mades. So you can find something that matches the genre that maybe has, you know, like a young woman on the front that has like the dark and the light or the contrast. And then all you have to do is, you know, order it, pay for it, and they'll put your title and your author name on there, and it'll look super professional because they're doing it. So that's one thing that I might suggest. And like I said, they're usually like $100, $150. They're not nearly as expensive as getting a custom cover. So that's something you could look into. I wonder, what time is it? We have just a couple more minutes. So let's try to look at one of these and see what it brings us. Pre-made covers. See how it says author names? But they usually will have a title on here. Sometimes it says book title, but even that, they would just change it to your title. So we've got, let's go to young adult. Some of those look a little bit like fantasy. Yeah, actually a lot of these look like fantasy. That one might be interesting. It kind of looks kind of dark and like you're dealing with issues, you know. Anyway, so you can see they've got like 200 of them. Most of these are, yeah, like $55, $65, $100. That's $349. That's a little more. $150, $70. So anyway, the point is is this the one that said they had like 15,000? They have tons of covers here you can look through, and then you don't have to do the work. They'll do it for you. So anyway, that's just another option for you if you're interested in that.
Cool.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Anything else I can help you with?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think you give me a lot to work with. You know, it's called Reinventing Hannah because it's big. The emphasis is really on how she reinvents herself and after the rape. And I wanted to differentiate from some books I've read where the whole book is about the person self-destructing.
Okay.
So,
well, I mean, maybe, and this is just a suggestion, it's not very common, I noticed, to have the name in the title. So what if you did something like I think that's a good thing to have reinvented in there, like you said, so that it's a little bit more positive. But what about like girl reinvented, or what else did I say? Reinventing. I don't know. None of the other words I wrote down would really work. Reinventing love. I don't know. Maybe that's a little bit cheesy. Anyway, so just something to think about. I mean, it's not a bad thing to keep her name in there, but it's also not very common in the genre. So you kind of want to stick with genre conventions in order to get the highest amount of sales. But that is completely up to you and your creative decision. So
right. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Okay. All right. Well, I will send you that file in just a little while here, and good luck with everything. And I hope you see your sales go up.
All right, great. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Thanks, Jack.
Right. Bye.
Me again. Before you go, if you found value in this episode, I would love it if you could leave me a review. Reviews are the best way to show your appreciation and help others find this podcast. Be sure to screenshot it, share it on your favorite social media network, and tag me at LK Hill Books. Remember, the world needs your stories. Only you can change someone's heart with your fire-breathing dragons, your mind-blowing mysteries, your epic romances, and your intense thrillers. So join the revolution and be a prolific author.